Okay, we're going to continue reading The Stars Beneath Our Feet. We are at chapter 5 now. But like every time before we get started on our reading, we want to look at our, our reader's response journal. And we want to make sure that we kind of know roughly about what we're supposed to be looking for, because it's easier to make connections and answer them if you have them in your head already. Now remember, we're looking at author's purpose. Okay, that's our focus this week, is what is the reason behind why this author is writing this story? When you're able to identify that reason, you can kind of understand a little bit more about the book. So, is the author trying to persuade you? That's like giving their opinion on something. Is he trying to inform you, or is he trying to entertain you? 3 different types of writing that we've actually already worked on this year. Narrative is that entertaining. Informative essays is that informing your author, and persuading is your opinion page, right? So we've worked on 3 of those already, where you are specifically writing for a reason. All right. Now, all writers do that. They all write a book for a purpose. When you can understand what that purpose is, you can get more information from your text, which is why it's important to examine that. We took a look at this yesterday, and it was, why did the author write this text? And we kind of felt like maybe the author, David Barclay Moore, is writing this book not to teach us necessarily. Like, it's not like an academic paper where you're trying to learn something and you're trying to inform somebody something, but maybe he's trying to teach us of a different perspective of life in an entertaining fashion. That's what we came up with yesterday. Now, what clues helps you figure out the author's purpose? So, as we read our chapter today, we're going to stop and think, what clues are helping us to figure out the author's purpose? Why did we decide that he wrote the book for entertainment, but giving us perspective? Why did that happen? Okay, so as we read today, we're going to think about that, and we're going to think about, like, what are these clues that are giving us that information? All right, chapter 5. Me and Vega, remember Vega is his friend that lives down the street, or like upstairs. And I think he was going back to the Dominican Republic. Okay, so I'm just trying to clue in the chat box. There we go. Me and Vega inched down the icy front steps of our middle school. Has anybody ever tried to walk down icy steps? You literally have to inch, right? Like, can you picture that in your head? Like, you're holding onto the rail, you're being really careful because you don't want to fall. Make that picture in your head. I still didn't believe that winter break was already over and I was back in class again. 2 weeks off sure seemed like nothing now. Can anybody relate to that? It was brick cold out this January afternoon. Vega was wearing the new shiny black parka that his grandma in DR had given him for 3 Kings. There's a holiday in the Latin American world, 3 Kings, Los Tres Reyes, which is like the idea that that when Mary had baby Jesus, 3 kings came to visit and they each brought a gift. And so for the Tres Reyes, you get 3 gifts. Vega had told me that in the Dominican Republic, 3 Kings Day was actually a bigger holiday than Christmas Day, or at least as big. Before the little kids in DR could go to bed that night, the night before 3 Kings, they would leave small boxes of grass underneath their bed. The grass was meant to feed the camels that the 3 wise men would be riding. The next morning, the kids would wake up to find a bunch of presents loaded at the foot of their beds. So for them, it was like having 2 Christmases every year. I remembered thinking that it wasn't fair, and I had asked my mother if they had the 3 Kings Day in Trinidad. Though my mom called herself Trini for Trinidadian, She had never been to Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. Her parents had been born there, but ever since my grandma found out her daughter had started dating women, she didn't speak too much to Ma. Mr. Ali want to talk to you, Vega said. I ran into him before school. You do something? I supposed I knew what Mr. Ali wanted to talk about, but I wasn't looking forward to it. Ali scared me sometimes. How's your violin, Vega? I asked, not wanting to talk about Mr. Ali. Vega and I had tried to cut the middle of the street. All the kids were hanging so deep in front of our school that we couldn't move on the sidewalk. Right, so there's a bunch of kids hanging out. Hey, by the way, I want to go back for just 1 second. When he's talking about the Three Kings holiday, is he teaching us something? Is he teaching us something about a different culture that we don't know about, maybe? Some of us might know about the Three Kings. But it seems like maybe he's giving us some insight into a different way of life and into a different culture. I'm wondering what his purpose is there, or if that's a clue about what it could be. So I'm going to put that in my memory bank. I could even write it down on one of my Post-it notes, okay, as a clue. Like, hey, here's a clue. He's giving us insight into a holiday that's kind of, it's from a different culture. All right. How's your violin, Vega? I asked, not wanting to talk about Mr. Ali. Vega and I had cut to the middle of the street. All the kids were hanging so deep in front of our school that we couldn't move on the sidewalk. Mr. D says, I'm coming along, Vega answered. He had been playing since he was 9. He wasn't that bad. I didn't think anybody was expecting him to play violin in nobody's orchestra any time. But listening to him didn't make your ears bleed. Watch out, Vega called to me in the street. He held me back. This girl, Tisha, shouted like somebody had cut her and ran in front of us. She stopped hard and grabbed the sleeve of Vega's new coat to keep from falling. He jerked his sleeve away from her. Another boy, Freddie, came chasing after Tisha. He bear hugged her, and they both slumped to the street, laughing. Me and Vega stepped over them. I almost kicked them instead. I had been so mean lately. I can't believe she yanked my new coat, Vega said, examining it for damage. I was only going to wear it around our place, or on special occasions, but then I thought, that'd be stupid. Yeah, that would be stupid. How would you only wear a parka inside your apartment? Shut up. We started back towards West 127th Street, toward after school. And Mr. Ali. The funny thing about Mr. Ali was his face. His face was weird. On one side of it just kind of got out of balance. The left side of his face was normal. His right side seemed like somebody had smashed his skull with a hammer and put the pieces back together again. Only the pieces had not fit right. Me and Vega walked quiet for a while until he asked me again about my castle. Besides my mother and Yvonne, he was the only one I had told about it. But I still hadn't let him come down to our apartment to inspect it. Lowell, man, why don't you let me see this secret project you built? He asked. I shrugged. What's he talking about? What's this castle? I don't remember a castle specifically, but I remember he had some sort of project going on. Legos, Mila says. So he was rebuilding stuff with his Legos, right? He took everything apart, and then he got those 2 black trash bags filled with Legos. So maybe he's working on a secret castle building project. Lowell, man, why don't you let me see this secret project you built? He asked. I shrugged. You must be embarrassed about it, he said. I didn't respond because I knew Vega was only saying that to try to trick me into showing him. Ever since Yvonne had given me all those Legos for Christmas, I had been building. I had started in my bedroom, then that got too small. I moved what I had been building into the living room, and it got even bigger. Ma had loved my castle when it stayed in my room. After I moved it, she started to grumble. And Ma was losing patience with it, taking up so much space. It was a good thing that ever since Jermaine had gone, she had let me get away with more stuff than I didn't used to get away with. Lots of times, I only needed to serve up a sad face and she would back down. Vega and me crossed over 125th Street. They followed us, Vega said to me, dipping his head behind mine. I tracked where his skull cap had pointed, and I saw those same 2 older boys that had been following me on Christmas Eve. They from East 127th, Vega said. They've been stressing my cousin to join the set. That would make you and your cousin enemies. Vega used his gloves to wipe his nose. Let's move, he said, and we took off running toward after school, before the 2 older boys could chase us. All right, we are going to pause there. The next sentence is pretty funny. Okay, so 127th is trying to get them to join their set. What does that mean? Can anybody help me with that? Can you guys help me decipher these words? Okay, Milla says their group. Good correction, Milla. Yeah, way to correct your homonyms. Yeah, absolutely, right? It's their set, their group, their gang, their crew, however you want to say that. So 127th is a different street, but they got to cross that street to get to their after school. And I'm guessing the after school means their after school program. So like their YMCA or their Boys and Girls Club or whatever it is. We've got Champs. Is that what ours is called? Our after school program. Champions. Thank you. So those boys that were like trying to steal his shoes hang out on the way to after school. It's kind of a problem. Let's go back to our reader's response journal, and let's take a look at it today. Now, we already know that we're looking for clues. We're looking for clues to help figure out the author's purpose. Is he here to inform us, or is he here to entertain us? What do you think? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the chat into direct quiet mode to just me. And I want to know what you think. Do you think that he is trying to inform us, or is he trying to entertain us? I'm going to give you 1 minute to put that into the chat box. Thank you for all of you guys that are already doing it. Look at that. Awesome. People listening and paying attention. Terrific. Huh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. All right. Awesome. Thank you all so much for adding to this chat. Yes, this is what like class is like, participating, right? You give me a little, I give you a little, we work it out, we work together. So thank you for everybody that answered in that chat box. You guys are awesome. So overwhelmingly, it looks like it's more for entertainment than to inform. But maybe, again, still with that idea of giving us some cultural perspective. Okay, so that's kind of what I would write about this today. If this was my reader's response journal and I was writing it, I would say, I think the author is trying to entertain us because it is written like a story and it doesn't have a whole lot of facts. Is that word whole? That's also a homonym. Whole, W-H-O-L-E, is a word that means entire. Whole, H-O-L-E, is like there's a hole in something where there's like an absence of something. Okay, and he doesn't have a whole lot of facts. But he is also informing us about different cultural perspectives. Okay? And those are the clues. Examples would be he sets the scene for what school is like. Can't you just picture that? Like the couple that's wrestling in the middle of the road. So many kids are outside, but they're not like moving on yet. They're just still there. So he's setting the scene for what school is like. And he taught us about the three Kings holiday in the Dominican Republic. Okay. And there we go. Now, you are off to do this same thing with your book. That is going to be your...
Do you think we can do the reader's response at the same time?
You sure can. If you can figure it out, you absolutely can do the reader's response at the same time.